In the year 2000, Insomniac released their third and final game in the Spyro trilogy, that being Spyro, Year of the Dragon, released conveniently enough on the Year of the Dragon. Great timing. Before we begin, I want to address a couple things real quick, namely that this is technically the first game in the trilogy I grew up playing, meaning yep, I'm one of the selective few that played the games in reverse order, Spyro 3, 2, then 1. Anyone else relate? And second, of all the games in the original Spyro trilogy, this is the one I hold in such high regards, ranking it as my personal favorite of the bunch. Despite this fact though, I'm gonna do my utmost to look into this without any sort of bias as much as possible. Wanna play it fair, you know? Anywho, on to what we got at hand. Being Insomniac's last game in the Spyro trilogy, they really wanted to end off on a good note. At face value, this game's got a lot more to offer than Spyro 1 and 2 combined, and playing through it, that's exactly the case. We've got a bunch of new faces, introduction to vehicle control, and perhaps the biggest game changer, more characters to play as besides Spyro. Insomniac felt they were running out of fuel for what further ideas they could do to spice up Spyro's gameplay. So they gave us a bunch of characters each playing differently from each other and adding a bunch of new playstyles onto the table. Variety in this game is off the charts, and I'm here once again to determine how well said effort for this game paid off. As always, spoiler warnings intact, and be sure to catch up on my Spyro Marathon playlist provided in the description. All this said, it's time to dive right into Spyro, Year of the Dragon. First up, our story this time. In the world of dragons, a new horde of villainous faces sneak their way to capture all of the dragon eggs, taking them all to the other side of the world, known as the Forgotten Worlds. These eggs are brought to the sorceress, this game's new evil face. Luckily for us, old friend Zoe catches wind of this new evil and warns Spyro and comrades. And because Spyro is the only one who can fit down the holes leading to the Forgotten Realms, it's up to him and old buddy boy Hunter to bring all the eggs back to the Dragon Realms and restore peace to the world. And once again, the adventure begins. Now, the setup and presentation, as far as story is concerned, is actually something really worth admiring, even if all you're doing is just simply collecting gems and MacGuffins once again. There's actually a surprising serious tone spreading throughout as the game progresses. Not to worry though, that's all carefully balanced by the amount of charm and life brought into the series since Spyro 2, and the characters are just as good and lovable here as they were in Ripto's Rage. You'll definitely be feeling for our new friend Bianca as the game progresses, but more detail on that in a little while. The sorceress honestly holds up pretty well as our antagonist this time around. What she lacks in the over-the-top hot-headed nature of Ripto, she makes up for with having an actual diabolical scheme beyond simply taking over the world. Easily the darkest of the Spyro villains we've seen thus far, and so long as they're giving us a big bad that's worth our time, that's really all I need. Now, as far as gameplay is concerned, Spyro's controls are virtually the same as they were in Spyro 2, so there's not a whole lot to write home about. All of Spyro's standard moves are still intact, and the best part is, all the abilities you've learned in the second game stick with you from the beginning, so you can still swim, climb, and head bash freely all you want. Makes me so glad they didn't force you to learn them all over again. If you've played Spyro at some point, you should know your main objective consists of collecting treasures scattered throughout the world, and this time your main collectibles are the dragon eggs. While were once gathered by merely chasing thieves around in Spyro 1, the dragon eggs this time serve a much bigger purpose. They can be found by simply walking up to them, either in hidden areas or in plain sight, performing special minigames and side quests, or even chasing those aforementioned thieves all over again. To put it quite bluntly, this game combines elements of both Spyro 1 and 2 and merges them together into one, this being a recurring theme throughout the game. We got power-ups aiding Spyro once more throughout this adventure. However, rather than collecting spirits to activate them, they're open to you at any given time. You can still Super Fly, Super Flame, and gain invincibility for a short time. Supercharging still intact, but through special ramps and arrows akin to Spyro 1. And in addition, as enemies no longer release spirit particles upon defeating them, you instead rob them of their money, much like the first game. This really does treat us to the best of both worlds after all. There's over 100 dragon eggs to find in the 4 homeworlds you travel through. Once you obtain an egg, you're greeted to a baby dragon that hatches right before your eyes, each one having their own unique name and different models and animations provided for each of them, all being so damn cute by the way. Oh look, there's me! There will be instances where these eggs are required to activate portals, as according to this game's story, thousands of years ago, the dragons used to roam free in these realms, hence how these worlds soon became the Forgotten Realms. The sorceress, not realizing how important the magic of dragons is in this world, ends up banishing them to the other side, and when the dragons leave, so did the magic surrounding the world. That said, the dragon eggs are very well utilized, and I gotta give Insomniac props for all the effort that went into each of them, even if yes, we do get duplicate models once in a while. Helping Spyro along the way are some new faces as well as the friendly allies we've known from Avalar. Hunter's still the same lovable idiot we know him to be, with plenty more challenges to give us, all with eggs at stake. And you know the love-hate relationship I've had with him before? Yeah, that's still holding strong.
What's the matter? Getting chicken on me? Whack, whack, whack!
You realize we're on the same turf, right? Zoe's still your save point feature, with a bit more of a bigger role than last time, as now she'll even be aiding Sparks on the occasion. And then there's Moneybags. Man, do we need to talk. So this guy's role is still the same. You pay up and hand him your gems at every opportunity. I said during Spyro 2 that Insomniac knew full well how much we'd hate the guy. This game is the perfect example of the fact. This time around, he's in cahoots with the sorceress, and is even holding our new friends hostage. Not helping his case is that the new and improved voice work really helps to fuel the flames, if you get me.
But you'll regret it. Many years from now, you'll sit on your old dragon haunches and wish with all your might that you could have just one more chance to see a game of cat hockey.
However, every time you free a new playable character, they'll always be quick to give this fat POS his just desserts. And each and every time is always satisfying to watch. Now that we're on the topic, let's discuss our newfound friends. First up is Sheila the Kangaroo. Simply put, she's an everyday kangaroo with a kick-butt attitude. In this case, literally. You can jump in midair, gain an additional jump as soon as you hit the ground, kick enemies around, and stomp in a similar fashion to Spyro's head bash. She's smooth to play as, and her controls are just fine and dandy. Her levels encourage jumping to new heights and kicking and stomping enemies in their place. Oh, and we've got a side scroller. That's cool. Next is Sergeant Bird, the world's only known flying penguin. At least to my knowledge anyhow. Raised by hummingbirds, he leads a military base, equipped with missiles and rockets for firing those pesky Rhinox around. As you might have guessed, his levels and gameplay revolve around flying all around the higher ground. You hold down X to fly, fire rockets with circle, look downward with triangle in midair, and occasionally you'll be carrying objects and projectiles, using square to drop them from a great height. As far as his character is concerned, he's personally one of my favorites, and I like the idea behind his design and gameplay. However, the only real issue I have with controlling him is his flight speed. To put it simply, Sergeant Bird is rather floaty, leaving me to question how his flight momentum even works at times. That said, this is the only real major if I have with him. Everything else appears to be smooth sailing. Bentley is a highly sophisticated and well-mannered Yeti with a pretty fascinating diction and vocabulary. Big and humble and packed with brute strength to boot. His crystal club can really pack a punch on those Rhinox, and just too strong for even Spyro. He can swing his club around, spin it to deflect enemy objects, and that's really about it. He's unfortunately the slowest of the bunch, leaving his gameplay something to be desired. However, I don't necessarily hate Bentley as a character. And last of our new playable friends is Agent 9, a fast-talking, hyperactive space monkey with an extreme thirst for blood. Rhinox if you will. Packing heat with Mr. Laser Blaster, as he affectionately calls his handy ray gun, he can shoot his way through enemies, equip and chuck bombs at will, enter sniper mode for a better look around, specifically to aim and fire better, and dodge left or right with the shoulder buttons. Calling back to Spyro's rolling ability, eh? I said Sergeant Bird was one of my favorites of the playable characters. Agent 9 would be the other, not only for his insane personality, but his controls are pretty on point with me and will even serve as the blueprint for Insomniac to develop another game franchise we all know and love. Now these are the last of our new characters to control throughout the game, but there's two others we'll be discussing later on. While not necessarily playable, she's still a new face worth considering. Important to the game's story is Bianca, who actually starts off by working with the sorceress and doing her dirty work, packing a ton of magic in store. Throughout your adventure, however, she starts to have second thoughts, usually concerning herself with actually killing the dragons. And as we witness what I want to call the sorceress' descent to madness, after learning her true intentions, Bianca turns on her, going against the sorceress' evil ways, and will now aid us in defeating her once and for all. All things considered, she's truly something admirable, and I gotta respect her for having some actual development going for her. And I know full well she's got as much love here as Alora in Spyro 2, and I'm not gonna deny that one bit. Major props all the way. Now back to gameplay for a bit. The worlds and levels within this game are even bigger than its predecessors, breathing vast amount of life into its creativity and design, all the while putting that polygon to work at its highest degree. Each of the hubs follow the patterns of the day: Sunrise Spring, Midday Garden, Evening Lake, and Midnight Mountain. And each of these worlds are beautiful to look at and explore throughout. Each homeworld contains 6 levels, including 1 for each playable character in their respective homeworlds, 4 traditional levels, and 1 speedway per map. The goal for each homeworld, save for the final hub, is as straightforward as ever. Enemies are causing trouble in each level, and your job is to save the day, play each level from beginning to end, all that jazz. However, there is a spin on this objective. After reaching point A to point B, the NPC who rewards you with a dragon egg will return back home with you, helping you prepare your means of transportation to move on to the next world. Bring home 5 characters from each world, including your playable buddies, and you'll be well on your way. As well as being a nice throwback to Spyro 1's balloon system, it's really nice that the people you save help you in return alongside your adventure. Returning from Spyro 2 are minigames in full force. Rather than being part of the main levels you're exploring, however, these missions are separated through their own special challenge portals, making each level much bigger in size and content. On occasion, you'll find portals that your playable buddies can access. Some of them you'll have to come back to later on in order to complete them. I gave Spyro 2 flag for backtracking, so I may as well be a fair sport. Each of the minigames are as fun, challenging, and varied as they were in Spyro 2, and as hinted earlier, vehicle controls are much more encouraged this time around. Speedboats, submarines, hovercraft devices, and what have you. The biggest selling point as far as the promotionals go is skateboarding. Essentially, Spyro meets Tony Hawk, performing all these radical moves and tricks. Personally, these are a lot of fun to play through, and you even get to race on skateboards later on, which is nice, provided you don't fall off course or hit any walls or obstacles. All in all, there's plenty of challenges I always enjoy, like shooting down robotic sharks, supercharging to hunt down thieves, playing Spyro's version of Doom, and even retrieving those lost skeleton bones again. Yep, that one guy in Skilo's Badlands is on vacation as well. And I even love the fact that we've got mini-bosses in select worlds, versus a Rhinox giant shark sub, a magical cranky wizard, and twin dragons, the latter being the most challenging. Of course, there are some grievances of which I'd like to address. For starters, stuff like swimming through tunnels sounds just fine on paper, but is actually more stressful than it seems to either hit the targets required or avoiding those hazardous obstacles in your path, and really makes for a test of precision and timing. And while I don't really mind eliminating those cat witches, as some people like to call out as being one of the worst, what really sets this back for me is that the hitboxes for the witches feel a bit off, and actually tracking them down in the arena really has me scratching my head. Even if I'm down to just one remaining, you will take a while to find them. Then we have the more infamous challenges plenty of people can relate to. This escort mission is an absolute mess. So the goal is to guide these 2 fireflies to open up some cages with explosives. Sounds good enough. The problem, however, lies in the fact that the AI for the fireflies is insane. Unless you know exactly how the patterns work, you'll be forcing yourself to stick with them, thinking they'll be going one way, but then they go off the route and hit a rock or a mushroom, causing you to start all over again. And ladies and gentlemen, how about that Yeti Boxing? Perhaps one of the most infuriating experiences of any Spyro game thus far. You have to fight this Yeti not once, but twice, mind you, as par for the course for any key Spyro minigame. Here is everything wrong with this though. The Yeti CPU is exceedingly difficult, to the point where you'll mostly be vulnerable and unable to fight back, provided of course you're able to get him cornered. And unless you're incredibly skilled, try doing this in a 3-round match for that second dragon egg. It's doable, but very nerve-wracking to even go that extra mile. And it would have been nice to know 18 years ago that this can be played with 2 people, saving me that extra time and trouble of having to replay this countless times. Yeah, no sugarcoating it, this is easily my least favorite playing experience, and I know for a fact that I'm not alone with that opinion. Talking about skill, we've also got the return of skill points as well, with an actual heads-up display this time indicating you pulled it off. Whether you're scoring an amazing skateboard record, aligning those tiki heads together, catching the funky chicken, or even swimming up to this one dark spot, because that takes incredible skill somehow, your achievements are still as enticing to tackle as they were before. Gotta discuss those speedways for a while. If you're familiar with Spyro, you should get the gist. Fly around, clear all the targets on the course within the time limit, and you win. A new feature living up to the Speedway name introduces races where Spyro will be flying against baddies surrounding the respective level. And if you search around, you'll find Hunter hidden in every Speedway. Dealing with sheep UFOs, Hunter will always be up to do something about it. And returning to those 2 remaining playables, yep, Hunter's one of them. Pretty cool how we actually help Hunter take care of these UFOs, whether we're behind a plane, shooting them down, or even taking flight. And personally, I'm all for this. One important thing to note, by the way, is that during your adventure, while you're exploring the 3rd homeworld in particular, Hunter will be held captive by the sorceress' doing. So one personal tip is to make sure you have any of Hunter's challenges cleared up to this point, should you ever forget about him and have to come back and finish them later on. And that final playable character is none other than your dragonfly buddy, Sparks. This requires heading back to each homeworld at a later time, but once you meet up with Zoe in that homeworld, you'll be able to take Sparks through special levels of his own, each being a top-down shooter. You'll be collecting keys to help you make progress, butterflies that give you special powers, and fight a mini-boss at the end of each level. All good stuff. Playing through these levels actually gives Spark some helpful abilities, like the gem finder we previously had from the get-go, being able to pick up gems from even further away, and even giving you 1 extra hit point. Sounds sweet to me. Also, as of Spyro 3, Sparks apparently learned to start speaking. Okay. The music for this game requires some serious talk for a bit. Stuart Copeland once again treats us to a fascinating soundtrack, with Ryan Beveridge lending a helpful hand this time around. And this game personally has some of Copeland's best work. However, it wouldn't be until I revisited this game about 10 years later that I learned the music in this game wasn't necessarily complete by the time of the original game's release, as some music tracks would repeat for several levels. Seashell Shore plays over Crystal Islands, Molten Crater over Dino Mines, Sunrise Spring over Evening Lake. Even the Speedway level share the exact same theme. Around that later point in my life, I played through the Greatest Hits edition of Year of the Dragon, and was surprised to hear every level having their own unique track now, with the new additions making the soundtrack much more varied than it initially would have been. In short, I love this game's soundtrack so much. A little fun fact, by the way, this game's got some serious anti-piracy support going on, as previous games have been reported to be hacked fairly easily sometime after release. So in a clever move, they made it so it would be an absolute chore to crack through the game and mess around with it. And should you be one to pirate this game by any means, you'll be going through all sorts of bugs and technical issues, as well as given a friendly reminder from our dear friend Zoe that you absolutely fail at life and should be utterly ashamed of yourself. I kid, of course. Boss battles for this game are just as solid and challenging as they were last time. After clearing each homeworld, the sorceress will send off one of her many minions and cast some powerful magic to turn them into monstrous beasts set to dispose herself of our dragon friend. And we're not fighting them alone, as our new friends are here to help us all the way. This makes these fights all the more impactful, and these bosses really do show off how much the sorceress means business. Like seriously, they're so fierce and menacing. These designs are some of the freakiest I've ever seen, and in the best ways possible. Our first encounter is with Buzz, a vicious looking toad monster whipped up by Bianca while she was still intimidated by the sorceress's bidding. Charge him all the way to the lava pits, and Sheila will do the rest from there. A couple rounds of this and he's out of there. Next is Spike, my childhood brick wall. No exaggeration when I say that this battle is one of the toughest I've ever faced in any Spyro game so far. In 3 stages, you charge lava boulders right at him, collect red power-ups to fuel Spyro's fire breath, and blue power-ups to fire explosions right at him. Scorch is perhaps the stuff of nightmares, but this battle is fairly manageable. Bentley will be aiding you by sending green and red missiles your way, your job being to fire when Scorch is open. Throughout this battle, he'll summon crabs, weasels wielding TNTs, fire trolls from Spyro 2, and even bring back Buzz for round 2. Then we have our big showdown with the sorceress. Unfortunately, the only thing that sets this back from Ripto is the fact that Spyro and the sorceress hardly show any sort of contact before the fight even begins. For what it's worth though, this battle still holds up pretty well in my eyes and makes for a decent end to your journey. Spyro will be fighting her magic with all sorts of weaponry given to you by Agent 9, be it cannons in Stage 1, hovercrafts in Stage 2, and space saucers in the final round. Your goal is to put the sorceress in her place and show her we don't play around. Again, a bit underwhelming compared to Ripto, but in my book it still gets the job done fairly well. Now, I know the end game for this game is packed to the brim with good stuff to do, but I'll try to keep it short and sweet for you guys. So having roasted her
big, fat, ugly butt,
we find Spyro on the search for Hunter yet again, seeking his friends for help. Retreated to Bentley, giving a clever callback to Spyro 1's interview setup, a reuniting with some old friendly faces, oh hello Allura, and a typical day in the life of Sheila the Kangaroo, each showing they clearly know something he doesn't. And he soon learns in Fireworks Factory that Hunter's hooked up with Bianca for some alone time watching a fireworks show. Well, Bianca, I hope you can put up with his on and off going stupidity, because charm aside, that's pretty much what he's got going for him. After the credits, you meet up with Moneybags one final time, leading to one of my absolute favorite parts of this entire game. Sweet, sweet payback. And assuming you've gotten all the dragon eggs and gems from every level, completing the game 100%, you're treated to one final level that combines the treasure hunting from Spyro 1 with the minigames from Spyro 2. Some fun to play and some actually challenging to beat. Find all the gems in this bonus level and you'll be able to finish this game off with a bang, restoring peace to the Dragon Realms once and for all. In conclusion, it really shows that Insomniac did their absolute best to make sure their final adventure with Spyro does just about everything they possibly could. The variety in this game is plentiful. It provides so much to do with many different playstyles to take into account. The story is just as amazing with plenty of the charm and humor we come to this game for. And to me at least, all this effort truly did pay off in the end, and will help create an absolute relic in the Spyro trilogy that I'll always treasure dearly no matter what. If you prefer Spyro 2 over this, that's fine. Hell, I don't even mind if Spyro 1 is your personal favorite. But in my eyes, this game does mostly everything just about right, to the point where I'd rank this highly over the other two. A great end to a classic trilogy we know and love. All this said, next time is where things get interesting. I can either cover the Game Boy Advance games next, or I could talk about... oh boy. I'll let you guys be the judge of that and come back to you in a couple weeks. Until then, I guess I'll be preparing myself for the inevitable. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you around. Take care now.
Are you just jealous that no one's ever made an action figure out of you?